Butterfly in reverse. Hopal huddled on the raft and regretted his choices. Why had he ever thought swapping the Bay of Katazar for the Sea of Snow was a good idea? There were fewer sharks, but the whales were just as terrible, and if the stories of the Winterfolk first mate Kewig were to be believed, they could turn into people as well. He missed Kewig. The two of them had gotten along really well. He glanced over to where the captain lay, still insensible, wrapped in makeshift bloody bandages. Kewig had died saving her. Just suddenly rose up out of the water, pushing her onto the makeshift raft with a Herculean effort, and then disappeared below the water to never come back up again. Hopal couldn't stop shivering, although whether from the cold or the horror he couldn't say for sure. When the raft suddenly shuddered and bucked, the panic overwhelmed him. "What is it? What is it?" he shrieked, covering his face as best he could. "Is it back? Is it back?" "It's land, you daft apeth," sneered Flask Kingspost. The burly Marcher third mate had been paddling with a piece of flat wood for the better part of an hour, the freezing water doing little to sap his boundless briar energy. A couple of the other surviving sailors jumped off the raft and dragged it up the rocky beach where it had come to rest. Hopal helped as best as he could, but with his arm in a sling, what he mostly did was get in the way. There were scrubby trees nearby, enough to get a small fire started. Nothing to eat, but the warmth was enough. They dragged the captain as close to the meagre blaze as they dared. She still hadn't regained consciousness. "I reckon we're somewhere near Talmus," said Flask. "If we're lucky, we're in Medendram, and if not, then we're across the border in Ankershun. That's liable to be a problem." Digata Eurgio, the ship's navigator, concurred. "Either way, we want to head south," she said quietly. "If we stick to the coast, we should be safe. The Jotun don't like the sea here any more than the Farad'n do." "They may have a point," said Hopal before he could stop himself. The other sailors ignored him. It had been the same on the Osprey. As the newest member of the crew, he'd pulled all the dirty duties and was the butt of most of the jokes. He had half expected it. The Osprey had a reputation as a rough ship, but it was the only one that would take him. Even in Fisk there were enough who knew of his history, of the loss of the Narwhal. People said he'd been cursed by the mother of wrecks. To lose one ship to sea monsters might have been seen as unfortunate, he mumbled to himself under his breath. To lose 2 ships to sea monsters. He laughed out loud in spite of himself, on the edge of succumbing fully to the hysteria bubbling up inside him. The other survivors stared at him, as if seeing him for the first time. Digata Eurgio narrowed her eyes, and looked as if she was about to say something unkind. At that exact moment, the captain woke up. She sat bolt upright, staring out to sea. "Captain!" There was cautious relief in Flask's voice, but the captain paid him no heed. She blinked at the fire for a few moments, then stood all the way up. She stumbled a few steps towards the shore. The other survivors rose, consternation running through their ranks. "Captain?" It was Digata's turn to speak. She put one hand on the captain's shoulder, but it was quickly shrugged off. The captain put a hand up to the side of her head, to the place where her antler had snapped off. A jagged shard of bone was sticking out of her temple. Her hand lingered there for a moment, and then her face contorted with fury. "You absolute bastard!" she bellowed, pointing at the sea. "You think you're going to get away with this? You think I'm going to let you get away with smashing up my Osprey? You think that?" "Captain, there may be Jotun around," and the captain completely ignored Digata, and Hopal felt a little stab of schadenfreude. "Well, think again, sonny. Think again. You count the days you have left, because I swear by my name that I am coming back for you, and I am going to mount your horns on my prow as a warning to any other Cambion whales that think they can just smash up my ship and get away with it." Flask was looking up towards the cliff, her face a mask of worry. He thought he'd heard someone moving on the rocks, and was increasingly convinced they were on the wrong side of the border. Digata was still trying to calm the captain, but she was too far gone in whatever rage had consumed her. "And you're all with me, right?" she shouted, spinning to face her remaining crew. "You'll help me track down this—" It took Hopal's brain a moment to catch up with what his fist had just done. For a brief moment, he wondered why his knuckles hurt, and then he realised it was because he'd punched the captain right on the chin. She'd crumpled into a pile at his feet. Flash, Digata, and the other surviving sailors looked at him. He opened his mouth to apologise, but there wasn't time. Flask was kicking dirt over the campfire, and everyone was getting ready to move out. Digata clapped him on the shoulder, and he fancied there was a glimmering of respect and recognition in her eyes for the first time. "Well done, new boy," she said. "She probably won't remember this, so don't worry, but we have a rule on the Osprey. Whoever knocks the captain out has to carry her. Overview. Following the autumn equinox 384 YE, more than 70 fleets from across the Empire set off on an expedition in order to map the Sea of Snow. Although the flotilla was unable to fully explore the Sea of Snow, they did reach the Farad'n coastline and identified a number of possible destinations for Imperial shipping. There are some diplomatic challenges still to be resolved. The only sizable Farad'n harbour is not open to Imperial shipping. However, the bay at Caton could support Imperial shipping if the sprawling docks were significantly expanded, and the harbour master there is open to the prospect of burgeoning trade with Wintermark and the Marches, provided that the Empire is prepared to share the burden of the investment needed. A port in a storm. The Farad'n have asked the Empire to contribute to the expansion of the port of Caton. The Empire would need a Senate motion, 15 wains of weirwood, and 45 crowns for the transport. The Farad'n would need 2 seasons to finish the work. Once complete, Imperial fleets could trade with Caton. The expansion would allow any fleets to trade with the Caton, and some fleets to hunt monsters in the Sea of Snows. The Farad'n don't appear to engage in much naval trade, if any. They have a number of small fishing vessels, but they don't appear to have any vessels capable of surviving the open seas. They do have an existing port in Yagalin in Undercent, where merchant vessels of other nations dock, but authorities who rule there have refused to make berths available to the Empire. The only viable alternative is the coastal town of Caton, in Pelabuhan in Menandram. The waters here are deep, and the surrounding promontories provide valuable protection from storms, so it would make an excellent port. Unfortunately, the existing sprawling docks are all designed to support the town's fleet of small fishing vessels, and none of them are remotely suitable for a large merchant ship. To enable trade with Farad'n would require substantial work to build new docking facilities at Caton. The High Lord of Menandram, Mukali Shemetsi, has offered to pay the lion's share of the cost, providing all the white granite and workforce required. However, they are only prepared to do so if the Empire also puts up a stake to show good faith in the project. To ensure that everyone has confidence in the arrangements, the High Lord proposes to personally arrange for the 60 wains of white granite required if the Empire agrees to supply the mere 15 wains of weirwood also needed. It is not a simple matter of raising the wains either. The weirwood is useless if it stays in the Empire. It will need to be shipped to Farad'n to be of any use. The only practical way to do that would be for the Imperial Senate to use a Senate motion instructing the civil service to arrange for the transport of the weirwood to Farad'n. No commission slot would be required, but the High Lord will arrange for all the work to be carried out by Farad'n builders. But it will only happen if the Empire provides the Farad'n with 15 wains of weirwood and 45 crowns to cover the transport costs. The work would also take 2 seasons to complete, but once done, the port of Caton would be available for Imperial ships to dock. While the costs aren't cheap, there are a variety of potential benefits of supporting an expansion of the docking facilities at Caton. Trade with the Farad'n. Caton would supply orichalcum, welt silver, green iron, and blood whelks. Wintermark and Marcher fleets would make the most profit, receiving a bonus of 1 rank to their production. The most obvious benefit to the new trade route would be a valuable new port that Imperial fleets could trade with. A number of ports have closed their berths to Imperial ships in recent times. There have been many benefits to the Liberty Pact, but it has resulted in the loss of access to Nemoria, Vizak, and Kavor. Enabling Imperial fleets to dock at Caton would reverse that trend. While ships of any nation can dock at Caton, Wintermark and Marcher vessels coming via the Gullet will make the most profit, receiving a bonus of 1 rank to their production. Caton sees a significant trade in metals, so any fleet docking there is bound to turn a profit buying orichalcum, welt silver, and green iron. It would also allow the ship's captain access to the prized blood whelk market. The Farad'n fishing vessels catch these delicious sea snails with pots that they put in the shallow waters all along the Pelabuhan coast. Most of the blood whelks are tiny, but they're used in Farad'n's thriving dye industry, producing a brilliant purple-red colour in cloth that never fades. However, occasionally the fisherfolk recover a single oversized blood whelk that has gorged itself on something on the seabed, causing it to grow to a giant size, the size of a human thumb. If a single gargantuan blood whelk is added to a soup or broth, the Farad'n usually use a bisque or chowder favoured with wild garlic, then the resulting broth is a powerful restorative. Provided they spend 15 minutes resting and relaxing after eating the broth, anyone who has consumed it will find that any venom or weakness that they are suffering from are cured, as are any lost hits or cleaved or impaled limbs. Care must be taken not to eat the actual whelk itself, however. That must be removed from the broth and disposed of, otherwise it brings on wild hallucinations and terrible nightmares. Hunting the hunters. Wintermark, Marcher, and Freeborn fleets could hunt monsters in the Sea of Snow. The returns would be very poor, unless the vessel was large and strong enough to catch a seahemoth or bigger. The ability to put to port in Farad'n would open up another opportunity in addition to trade with the Farad'n. The Sea of Snow is infamous for the monsters that lurk in its dark, cold waters. Only a fool would dismiss these tales. Several ships that went north in the Sea of Snow never returned, and more than one crew found themselves fighting for their lives when their ship came under attack from a monstrous sea beast. Sea moths more than twice the size of a full-grown oxen have been known to attack ships, looking to smash the hulls and consume anyone who falls into the water. Cambion whales with great curling horns have been spotted, and there are reports of kraken, the most feared of all the inhabitants of the Sea of Snow. The Farad'n avoid these monsters. Their limited fleet of fishing vessels stay close to the shore and immediately flee if a sea monster is spotted, using a system of flares to warn other vessels in the area to do likewise. They would never contemplate hunting one of these creatures, not least because they've never possessed the kind of ships needed to take on such deadly beasts. They have no experience fighting them and can offer no advice on how to go about it. To be fair, the Empire doesn't have experience fighting kraken either, but it does have the ships. An upgraded fleet, or one with a powerful enchantment such as blood and salt, would be a match for a sea moth or a cambion whale. The biggest, most powerful Imperial vessels might even be able to take on a small kraken. They would need to spend the season at the new docks at Caton to have any chance of catching a creature, which is something only a marcher or winterfolk or swift freeborn vessel can do. There simply wouldn't be enough time for an Imperial ship coming from another port to carry out an effective hunt. A starting fleet that chose to spend the season hunting the area would receive an ingot of welt silver and other luxuries worth 3 crowns from the grateful Farad'n fishing community. It would be a poor return and not worth the effort. Only if the vessel were large enough and powerful enough to defeat a sea moth would the returns be worthwhile. A fleet with a military strength of more than 200 would return with a bounty of precious sea moth oil, while a ship with more than 300 military strength could recover pieces of whale horn. There are only a tiny number of fleets in the Empire capable of hunting a kraken, but a fleet with a military strength of 400 or more, whether from upgrades or rituals, would return with kraken's ink as their reward. Dredging the Westmere. The coastal waters of the Westmere need regular dredging to further improve Imperial trade with Farad'n. Dredging the waters would require a commission and cost 50 wains of weirwood, 30 wains of white granite, 20 thrones, and take 6 months to construct. Mead March would gain the coastal quality. If this was combined with expanding the docks at Caton, it would create the potential for 2 new Imperial positions that could buy Bourse materials from the Farad'n. Dredging the Westmere would see taxation increase by 2 thrones each season in both Bregisland and Calavesa, and 5 thrones each season in Mitwold. The market town of Mead is the largest Imperial settlement on the Gullet, with easy access to the Sea of Snow. The docks are better suited than those elsewhere for handling the number of ships expected to be making the journey to trade in Menandram, but they don't compare with those in Cargo, Sirok or Atalaya. The key reason for this is the shallow waters that lead to the port. The entire area needs to be dredged, widening and deepening the channels that lead to the docks, making it much easier for large ships to get in and out. Dredging the harbour and the surrounding waterways is no simple matter. It would require a Senate motion, 50 wains of weirwood, 30 wains of white granite, 30 thrones, and take 6 months to complete the facilities and equipment needed to dredge the area. The dredging would need to be constantly maintained as well, but that cost to the Senate would be more than covered by an increase in taxation. New businesses and opportunities in Bregisland, Calavesa and Mitwold would see a seasonal increase of 9 thrones each season to the Imperial Treasury. The region of Mead March would also gain the coastal quality, potentially allowing the future construction of a shipyard at Mead. Crucially, this would ease the passage of Imperial vessels making the difficult journey to Caton, making it much easier for trade to flow between the Farad'n and the key ports on the Westmere, Mead and Fisk. Mead from Mead. The Sayarin merchant family have offered a trade agreement making mithril available to purchase until the winter solstice 388 YE. The Sayarin are powerful, but cannot afford to keep this offer open indefinitely. If work on dredging the Westmere isn't completed before the spring equinox 386 YE, then it would need to be renegotiated. Amushi Serin has approached the Imperial ambassador to Farad'n with a proposal for a trade agreement. The Serin are a powerful and wealthy Farad'n family, with deep connections to Chinua Gambatar, the new liege of the Five Winds. The family control a valuable mithril mine in Farad'n, and they're keen to take advantage of the current opportunities presented by the potential expansion of the docks, coupled with the high prices being offered for mithril in the Empire. If both the docks at Caton enlarged and the waters near Mead were dredged, then the Serin would arrange to make mithril available for purchase. They are keen to buy grain, apples, salted meat, cider and mead from farms across the marches. The Empire would need to appoint someone to handle the trade, the Alderman of Mead perhaps, which would need to be appointed as a position in the Imperial Bourse, either through auction of the seats, if Imperial, or tally of the votes, if a national title in the marches. In return, the Serian merchant family are prepared to commit a 2-year trade agreement as a minimum, allowing the Alderman of Mead the chance to purchase mithril at an agreed rate. It's not clear why the Serian are prepared to sell so much mithril to the Empire, nor what purpose they intend to put their profits to. They are known to be keen adherents of prosperity, and there is some suggestion that this trade agreement will influence Farad'n politics, affecting the internecine squabbling between the various high families who support or oppose the current liege of the Five Winds. The Empire is largely blind to the details of this factionalism, but the arrangement appears to come with the blessing of Chinua Gambatar, so it is reasonable to assume that there won't be any negative ramifications. Rather, bolstering a key ally of the current ruler could well help the Empire's diplomatic relations with Farad'n. Fiscal expansion. The Saladin merchant family have offered a trade agreement making Ilium available for purchase until the winter solstice 390 YE. The Saladin are wealthy but cannot afford to keep this offer open indefinitely. If work on dredging the Westmere isn't completed before the spring equinox of 386 YE, then it would need to be renegotiated. The town of Fisk is smaller than Mead, but as the only real wintermark trading port, it is a crucial market for many halls across the nation. Dredging the Westmere would benefit Fisk every bit as much as Mead, making it much easier for the heavily laden trading vessels to enter and leave the port. Another Farad'n family, led by Sonara Saladin, are interested in the possibilities that this creates. Farad'n politics are notoriously opaque, but by all accounts the Saladin are apparently implacable rivals of the Serian, and are keen to ensure that the benefits of trade do not all go to the supporters of Chinua Gambatar. They have Ilium for sale, and are keen to buy beggar's lye, salted fish, and finished goods marked with runes made by Wintermark artisans. This means that the ministry will require both coin and measures of beggar's lye to operate. The Empire would need to appoint someone to handle the trade, the mediator of Fisk perhaps, which would need to be appointed as a position in the bourse, either through auction of the seats if imperial, or tally of the votes if a national title in Wintermark. In return, the Saladin merchant family are prepared to commit a 3-year trade agreement as a minimum, allowing the mediator of Fisk the chance to purchase Ilium at an agreed rate. Given the goods the Saladin are looking to purchase, it makes sense that they would want to agree an arrangement with a position based in Calavesa, but there are suggestions that they are also keen to keep as much distance as possible between themselves and their rivals. They appear to be keen to ensure Serian have as few opportunities to know what they are buying and selling as possible. As always, the rivalries between the Farad'n families remain opaque to Imperial observers. For further reading, please see the page on the Sea of Snow.